All right, now practice problem number 2 asks us to write a program to print 20 horizontal asterisks. Right. Well, I've got a code blocks project up and going here. Got a file practice2.c here with this problem statement in the comments. I need to remove my old file from the project, so we just have this one in here. All right, I've started main. I've included standard I/O because we're going to use printf to write this. And I've just put an example here. These are actually 20 horizontal asterisks to give you an idea of what your output should look like. Most of the time, before you write a program, you should always have some idea of what your output should look like. Draw it on pencil and paper, right? Because you're usually making up your own problem, but here's what we want to do. So we know that we could very simply, right, I could copy this string of asterisks. I can very simply put this in a printf statement, say %s, and I'm going to do a new line before that and a new line after, and I can just put this in as part of a string, right? And voila, 20 asterisks, right? Not really exciting. Of course, the idea is we're learning loops in this unit. We want to actually print one of these at a time. We want to print it on the same line. Right? So we don't want to do this. We want to, so we're going to let's write a while loop that prints one asterisk at a time. What are we going to need to know? Do we have to have any variables? Well, we have to have some sort of variable that controls how many times our loop executes. So let's make one and call it loop count. We can initialize the loop count to 0. Now let's say while loop count is less than, well, we said we wanted 20. And so we'll make this 20 here. And let's put this printf in here. But now let's just make this one asterisk. I'm going to get rid of the new line characters because I don't want to write a new line every time. And if we just run this, what are we getting? We're getting an infinite loop. Why are we getting that infinite loop? So Control-C to stop it. Because I did not increment the loop counter. And this is something that a lot of times as a beginning programmer, you will forget to do, and you'll get that infinite loop. And then you'll say, oh, why is that happening? So we want to say loop count equals loop count plus 1. You can use the increment operator as well. There's different ways you can increment this by 1, but now if I say build and run, now we get the output that we'd like. Right, we got 20 asterisks there. And if we wanted to pretty it up, we could do something like, if we wanted to drop it down a couple lines, we could print out a couple new lines before this starts. So I could just say something like print 2 blank lines. Oh, and my other one's still running. Build and run again. So what I did was I just hit F9 to build and run. We get that. And then if we wanted another blank line after the loop was done, all right, we could do that or a couple. All right, makes it a little bit easier to see that. All right, so there's a loop, a while loop that controls that execution. Let's go back to the idea of, well, what if we wanted to change the limit here? It's not that hard. in our code to change the limit to, say, 42. Right. Build and run, we get 42. That's the power of the loop. Power of the loop is that we can break this problem up into its smallest unit. That's what we did when we implicitly said, well, let's just print one asterisk at a time. We broke this problem up into a common step that can be performed every time through the loop. This controls how many times our loop executes. Right? Now, another thing we could do is we could use a macro, or we could use this preprocessor directive pound define, and we could define something called limit. And now if I made limit 20, and I put the word limit in here, right? What the compiler does, what happens is at compile time, this value of 20 is actually substituted in here. Right? Again, build and run. We're going to see we get our 20 asterisk out. Right? The behavior we expect. All right. And why was it important not to do a new line character here? Well, they won't be horizontal. They won't all be on the same line. Right? Notice we get one per line. That's what that does. So if you wanted 20 vertical ones, that's what you do to change the problem. Right? So now that we've done this with a while loop, let's just go ahead and perform the same thing with a for loop. We're going to write a for loop that prints 1, so our for loop syntax is the keyword for. I'm going to declare my loop count variable here. So int loop count, I'm going to assign it the value of 0. And then I'm going to say my test condition is loop count less than limit. Right. And I could say loop count equals loop count plus 1 to be consistent, instead of using the increment operator. We'll do that in another example later. All right, so the only statement that goes inside here then, right, is this whole printf statement. Once again, if I wanted to print a couple blank lines before the loop executed, I could do that here. And if I wanted to print a couple blank lines afterward, just to make our output easier to see, not part of the problem statement, just something as a programmer you might want to do to make it easier to view your output. I can do that. And if we build and run, we're going to see the same output behavior. All right, let's again discuss the difference between a for loop and a while loop. With a while loop, we needed to declare the variable outside the while loop and initialize it to a known value outside the while loop. Right. The while loop then performed this test condition. It said while the loop count was less than the limit, so as long as that's true, we perform the statements in the body of the loop. Well, the for loop works very similarly. Here, inside the for, I went ahead and declared loop count and initialized it to 0. The for loop then performs all these statements to the left, in this case the single statement to the left of this first semicolon, once and only once at the start of the for loop. The next statement performed is this test comparison. As long as this comparison is true, then it drops into the body of the loop and performs the statements in the body of the loop. In this case, we have one statement in the body of the loop. Remember, the curly brackets indicate body of loop. It performs this one statement. And then the for loop, when it's finished, it goes up here and executes this statement. Right? It adds 1 to loop count. Whereas in our while loop, we did this increment within the body of the loop, within the body of the curly braces. So that's the syntactical difference between a for loop and a while loop. Other thing being is if you wanted to, you could have declared loop count outside here. That's often done. And then just initialized it here. So you'll often see either of these methods, and they both work the same. Similarly, right, if I change the limit, say to 9 now, and build and run, all right, we're going to get the same behavior, except we just get 9 a horizontal asterisk. Remember what made them horizontal was the fact that we didn't put a new line character here. All right, we just used a string specifier to print out one asterisk at a time. That's all we needed to do for this example.